I heard my daughter scream so loudly it felt like the whole ground shook. She was hanging above the huge double drum crash machine, tied with a rope to a metal bar. The machine rumbled under her, and she cried with pure fear, tears running down her face. "Dad, please help me, please." And beside the rope stood HOA Karen, wearing her bright red dress, smiling like she enjoyed every second. "She never follows my rules," Karen shouted. "Maybe now she will." Then Karen let the rope go. My daughter screamed even louder, "Dad!" I ran toward her with everything I had, my heart exploding with panic. Dust flew around me as I pushed forward. Karen only stood there laughing, proud of what she had done. She didn't know. She didn't even imagine it. The girl she tried to frighten, the girl she dropped, was the daughter of the police chief. The scream hit me like a punch to the chest. I had heard my daughter call for me before, when she scraped her knee, when she woke from a nightmare, but never like this. This scream was sharp, terrified, shaking the air itself. It made the world stop for a second before everything suddenly rushed forward. I dropped the toolbox in my hands and sprinted toward the construction area behind the house, my boots kicking up clouds of dust as I ran. The closer I got, the louder the machine's deep rumble grew, steady, heavy, vibrating the ground under my feet. And then I saw her. My daughter was hanging in the air, tied tightly with a thick rope around her waist, dangling above the massive double drum crash machine. The machine churned slowly, its twin drums rolling, pressing the soil flat. The noise was so loud it drowned out almost everything else, except her terrified crying. She kicked her legs helplessly, her arms reaching out as if she could somehow grab the sky and pull herself to safety. Tears streamed down her face in long, wet lines, her breath broken, her voice cracking every time she tried to call out again. "Dad, Dad, please, please help me." My stomach twisted into a hard knot, and then I saw Karen. HOA Karen. Red dress, stiff posture, hands on her hips, hair flying in the dusty wind. She looked like she belonged at a community meeting, not next to a roaring industrial machine. Yet here she was, completely calm, smiling like she was enjoying a TV show. She stood right beside the rope that held my daughter up, like a puppeteer controlling a terrified child. The rope wasn't even tied properly to anything safe. It looked like Karen had wrapped it around a loose hook on the metal support beam, just enough to suspend the girl and scare her. Karen's eyes were cold as she stared at my daughter, who was crying and shaking with pure fear. Karen shouted over the roar of the machine, "She never follows the rules. She walks slow, she talks back, and she makes this whole neighborhood late. This will finally teach her." My daughter sobbed. "I didn't do anything. Dad, please." My heart hammered against my ribs so hard it hurt. I forced myself to run faster, pushing the fear down and focusing only on getting to her in time. Karen looked at the child again, then at me, and she smiled. A smile so cruel it made the dust-filled air feel colder. Without warning, she let the rope slip out of her hands. My daughter screamed, a sound so sharp it cut through the machine's noise like lightning ripping the sky. "Dad, please!" Her body dropped quickly for a moment, before the rope caught against a metal edge above her. She didn't fall into the machine. She wasn't hurt, but she didn't know that. All she knew was fear. The terror in her voice sliced through me. I sprinted harder, my throat tight, my breath heavy, my entire body locked in panic. Karen didn't move. She didn't gasp, didn't react, didn't show fear. She laughed. She actually laughed. A loud, echoing laugh that twisted the entire scene into something nightmarish. She tossed her hair back and said, "You all ignore me. You all think the HOA is a joke. Now look how fast he runs when it finally matters." My vision blurred with anger. "You're insane," I shouted as I got closer. Karen pointed at my daughter swinging above the machine. "She will remember this lesson. Everyone will." Every step I took felt too slow. My hands ached to pull my daughter down. The machine rumbled beneath her, shaking the metal beam she was tied to. She squeezed her eyes shut and screamed again. I yelled, "Hold on, I'm coming." Karen crossed her arms and watched me with satisfaction, like she was proud of what she'd done. She had no guilt, no remorse, no hesitation. To her, my daughter wasn't a child. She was a rule breaker, a problem, a lesson to teach. I reached the metal platform beside the machine and grabbed the rope tightly. My daughter's fingers brushed my wrist as she cried, her whole body trembling. "I'm here," I whispered. "You're okay. I'm here." Karen took a step closer, still smiling. You finally listen now, don't you? She said in a mocking tone. You finally understand who's in charge. I looked at her, furious. You tied a child to a rope above a machine. She shrugged. And she's my daughter, I said, my voice low. Karen rolled her eyes. So what? Everyone has a daughter. I stared at her for a long, tense moment. Then I let my jacket fall open slightly, the sunlight catching the metal badge clipped to my belt. Karen froze. Her smile faded. Her eyes widened. Her mouth fell open. She whispered, You're the police chief? I nodded once, and for the first time all morning she looked scared. Really scared. She stumbled backward, her voice shaking. I didn't know she was your daughter. I didn't know. That's the problem, I said. You shouldn't need to know who a child belongs to, before you choose not to hurt them. My daughter clung to me, crying softly as I lowered her safely into my arms. Dust swirled around us, but the world felt still, quiet, heavy. Karen stood there trembling, her confidence gone, her power fading with each breath. She had picked the wrong child to terrorize, and she was about to learn what real consequences looked like. The yard felt like a battlefield the moment I held the rope in my hands. The machine kept rumbling below, sending small vibrations into the ground that climbed up through my boots and into my legs. Dust floated around me like smoke, drifting in the harsh sunlight. My daughter clung to my arm, still crying softly, her breath shaky and uneven. I gently lifted her down and held her against my chest. Her tiny hands grabbed my shirt tightly, as if she feared letting go would drop her back into danger. I kissed the top of her head and whispered, You're safe now. I've got you. But the air behind me felt tense, charged, like electricity crackling close to a storm. Karen wasn't done. I turned just in time to see her backing away from the metal beam, her red dress whipping around in the dusty wind. She looked confused, shocked, and angry all at once. Her chest rose and fell rapidly as her brain tried to catch up to what her eyes were seeing. My badge, my stance, my daughter in my arms. I didn't know she was yours, she stuttered, her voice shaking. She's a child, I replied, trying to steady my tone even though my heart was still slamming against my ribs. That should have been enough for you. Karen shook her head, her hair frizzing out as she grabbed it with trembling hands. No, you don't get it. Everyone ignores me. Everyone breaks the HOA rules and no one listens. I had to make her pay attention. My wife came running toward us then, her shoes sliding on the dirt as she stumbled from fear. She rushed past Karen without even looking at her, her entire focus locked on our daughter. She cupped our daughter's face in her hands. Sweetheart, my wife breathed, tears already forming. You're okay. You're okay, baby. My daughter nodded weakly, still trying to catch her breath. She leaned heavily against my shoulder, exhausted from all the crying and fear. Then behind us came that voice again. Karen. I didn't mean to hurt her, she shouted. This is all your fault. You people pretend the rules don't matter. My wife turned sharply. Karen, she's 8. What rules does an 8-year-old break? Karen stepped forward, red shoes digging into the dirt. She leaves her bike out. She walks slowly on the sidewalk. She draws with chalk outside the lines. These things matter. My wife stared at her in disbelief. She's a child, Karen. Children do those things. No, Karen snapped. Not in my neighborhood. Not under my authority. Her words struck me harder than the noise of the machine. Under her authority? As if she owned the people here. As if a title she was given made her the queen of every house, every yard, every child. I held my daughter closer, shielding her with my arms, as Karen continued pacing in front of the machine like she was giving a speech. I warned you yesterday, Karen said, pointing her finger at us. I said I'd take action. You thought I was bluffing. You call this action? I said, stepping toward her slowly. You tied a girl to a rope above heavy machinery. Karen threw her hands up. She would never have listened any other way. The absurdity of her words made something heavy settle in my chest. I wasn't dealing with an angry neighbor or a strict rule keeper. I was dealing with someone who thought fear was a tool. Someone who thought children needed to be taught with intimidation. Someone who believed authority gave her the right to do anything she wanted. People like her weren't dangerous because of what they could physically do, but because of what they believed they had the right to do. Behind Karen, I noticed movement. Neighbors. A few stood along the fence line now, their faces pale, their hands covering their mouths. They must have seen everything from inside their homes. They exchanged looks with each other, fearful, ashamed, maybe even guilty for staying silent all this time. One neighbor, a woman holding a cup that shook in her hand, finally spoke. "Karen, what were you thinking?" Karen stepped back, shocked that anyone else dared to speak. "I was thinking about the rules. This neighborhood is falling apart. People break the guidelines every day. Someone had to bring order," another neighbor added, "by scaring a child." "That's not order, Karen." Karen's lips quivered. Her anger started breaking apart like glass under pressure. "You all just let things slide. You never support me. You never help me keep this place perfect." A man on the far side of the yard said quietly, "Karen, it's a neighborhood, not a kingdom." Karen whipped her head toward him. "This place would be perfect if people listened to me." I stepped between her and my family, finally lowering my daughter onto the ground. My wife held her tightly as I faced Karen head on. "You don't scare children into following rules," I said. "You don't endanger lives to teach lessons." "You don't understand," Karen yelled, pointing at me. "You were never here during my meetings. You never respect my authority. None of you do." "No," I said softly, "because respect is earned, and you only use fear." Her face twitched. Her voice cracked. "I was just doing my job." "No," I said again, firmer this time. "You were abusing it." Behind her, the machine continued to rumble idly, like a giant breathing in the background. Dust swirled around Karen, her red dress now dull from the dirt. She didn't look powerful anymore. She didn't look confident. She looked lost, frantic, like someone watching everything crumble at once. "You're twisting this," she barked. "You're trying to make me the villain." "You made that choice yourself," I replied. Karen looked around quickly, desperate for support, but the neighbors only stepped farther back. She finally realized she stood alone. Completely. And she had done it to herself. Her eyes darted to my badge one more time, and her breath hitched. I didn't know she was your daughter. You shouldn't have needed to know," I said. "You should have cared, because she's a child." Karen's voice dropped to a whisper. "I didn't think it would get this bad." But it had. It had gotten worse than even she expected. And in that moment, with my daughter safe beside me and the machine rumbling behind us, I knew this wasn't the end of it. Not even close. The air felt heavier than before, thick, dusty, and full of unspoken tension. The double drum machine rumbled behind me like a metal beast waiting to act, and the entire yard seemed trapped between two worlds, fear and fury. My daughter clung to my wife now, her face buried in her mother's chest, trying to calm her shaking breath. Karen, on the other hand, was spiraling. Her earlier confidence was gone, but something else had taken its place. A frantic mixture of confusion, stubborn pride, and fear of losing control. She paced back and forth, dragging her fingers through her hair, eyes darting around as she tried to make sense of what was happening. No, this is wrong," she muttered to herself. "I was just fixing a problem. I wasn't hurting anyone. Everyone makes me the villain." She spun around and pointed at me suddenly. You're twisting this whole situation. This was discipline. A warning. People ignore me. They all ignore me." Her voice cracked like a weak branch under pressure. I stood my ground, my daughter safely in my wife's arms, and kept my tone steady. "Discipline? You tied an 8-year-old above a machine, Karen." Karen's breathing grew shallow. "She breaks rules. She breaks every rule. You think I don't see it? You think I don't notice her? Chalk drawings, her bike on the sidewalk, her slow walking? This whole neighborhood was falling apart." A neighbor behind the fence whispered, "My God." Karen snapped toward them. You never follow trash day instructions either. I've warned you 3 times." The neighbor stepped back, hands raised. "Karen, you scared a child. Trash day doesn't matter that much." Karen let out a strange laugh, almost hysterical. "It does. It matters because rules matter. If people break one rule, they break all of them. The problem wasn't the rules. It was her obsession with controlling everything and everyone." Karen turned toward me again, pointing her trembling finger. "You all treat me like I'm crazy, like I'm nothing. But I run this neighborhood. Me, not the mayor, not the council, not you." My wife stepped forward, still holding our daughter but speaking with a strength I rarely saw. "You don't run anyone's life. And you don't touch children. Ever. Karen shook her head quickly, almost violently. You don't understand. If I let one person get away with something, then all of you follow. It's like a disease. One slow walker ruins everything. I blinked slowly. Walking slowly is not a crime. I assess when I say it is, Karen screamed. The ground seemed to tense with her voice. Even the machine's rumble felt quieter for a moment, as if the whole earth paused to listen to her madness. My daughter whimpered in my wife's arms. The sound made Karen flinch, but not with guilt, with annoyance. There she goes again, Karen muttered, crying for no reason. Every day it's noise and mess and breaking things. My jaw tightened. She was scared for her life. She was dramatic, Karen snapped. Kids today are so soft. In my day, we followed rules without crying. We respected authority. You aren't authority, my wife shot back. You're just the HOA president. That doesn't make you a judge, police, or parent. Karen's face twisted into something dark. It makes me the only person who cares about order. I stepped between Karen and my family, not aggressively, just enough to block her sight. She didn't like that. Her eyes flashed. Oh, so now you're being protective? She taunted. Where was this energy when she was drawing butterflies on the sidewalk? That's against Rule 14A. You almost hurt her, I said calmly. I won't let you near her again. Karen smirked, bitterness dripping from her voice. Finally, he admits he doesn't respect the HOA. This was the moment Karen tried to make the story about rules again, about me versus her, the HOA versus the residents. But she didn't realize the truth. It was about a child, a terrified child, and everyone saw that now. A few more neighbors slowly stepped forward, closer than before. They weren't hiding behind fences anymore. They were realizing what had nearly happened. An older man said quietly, Karen, this isn't normal. You went too far. A woman next to him added, We've been scared of you for months. You threatened us with fines for ridiculous things. Karen's mouth fell open in disbelief. All of you, you're turning against me? Another neighbor stepped forward. We're not turning against you. We're finally being honest. Karen shook her head violently. You're ungrateful. I sacrificed everything for this neighborhood. I made it perfect. I spent hours writing rules, writing letters, checking lawns. I deserve respect. You don't earn respect by hurting people, I said quietly. Karen's eyes flicked between us. Me, my wife, the crying girl, the neighbors, the machine, the rope on the ground, and something inside her cracked. I didn't mean to do that, she whispered, her voice trembling. My daughter cried softly again. Karen winced like the sound physically hurt her. It was supposed to be a warning, Karen said. A lesson, just a lesson. No lesson justifies terror, my wife replied. Karen stared at her red dress, brushing the dust off it as if trying to clean her fading dignity. Then she looked at me resentfully. You should have told me who you were. I took a step forward. I shouldn't have to. You should treat every child with care, not only the ones who belong to people with badges. Karen's breath caught. Her face flushed red with embarrassment. You people, you ruined everything, she whispered. All I wanted was control. That's the problem, I said. You wanted control over people who didn't belong to you. Karen looked around again, and for the first time she noticed the distance, the space everyone kept from her, the silence, the judgment, the fear. She wasn't the leader she imagined herself to be. She was the threat. Karen stumbled backward, her voice barely holding together. I didn't want to be the villain. I stared at her, my daughter's crying slowly quieting in my arms. You became one, I said softly. The moment you put a child in danger. Karen's knees shook. Her hands trembled. Her red dress fluttered in the wind. This was the beginning of consequences, and she knew it. Karen looked like she had been struck by lightning. Her entire body stiffened, her red dress blowing against her legs as the afternoon wind picked up. The dust around her swirled, making the scene look like something from a nightmare she didn't know how to escape. For the first time since all this began, she didn't shout. She didn't argue. She simply stared at the badge shining in the sunlight. Her voice broke. You're the police chief? I said nothing at first. I just held my daughter close and finally turned my full attention toward Karen. My silence seemed to hit her harder than any words could. She stumbled backward, her shoes sliding in the loose dirt. Her breath came out in short, sharp gasps. Her hands shook like she couldn't decide whether to raise them or hide them. Then she whispered, "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know she was your daughter." My wife stepped to my side, putting a gentle hand on our daughter's back. "You shouldn't need to know who she belongs to," she said coldly. "She's a child. That should have been enough." Karen blinked rapidly, almost as if she didn't understand how to process what she was hearing. She pressed her palm against her forehead, dragging her fingers across her skin as though trying to wipe away the truth. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," she muttered. "It wasn't supposed to go this far." I took a step toward her. Karen flinched like she expected me to yell or grab her, but my voice stayed calm, steady, controlled. "A double drum machine, a rope, a child. And you call that a lesson?" Karen's eyes darted away, desperate to find something, anything, to defend herself. The machine rumbled behind us, its heavy drums spinning slower now but still loud enough to shake the ground. Karen pointed weakly at it. "I only wanted to scare her a little. She never listens. None of you listen. That's because you don't speak," my wife said sharply. "You shout, you threaten, you bully." Karen's lips trembled. "I'm the HOA president. People have to respect me." "No," I said. "Respect isn't demanded. It's earned." Her face twisted. She wasn't used to being spoken to this way. The corners of her mouth tightened, and her eyes glistened with something that looked almost like fear, or maybe shame. But the moment passed quickly. Karen straightened her back again, though her voice wobbled. "You don't understand what I deal with. People break rules everywhere. Trash bins in the wrong spot, decorations too bright, kids drawing chalk, bikes left outside. I'm the only one trying to keep this place in order." "You tied a child above industrial machinery," I said. "That's not order. That's chaos." Karen's face flushed red, part panic, part anger. No, I didn't hurt her. She's fine. Look, she didn't fall. You let go of the rope," I said. "You let her scream." Karen winced, as if the memory hit her harder now that the chaos was over. I just wanted her to take me seriously." "She's 8, I reminded her. Karen's eyes shifted to the ground. For a moment it seemed like she might cry, but then her face hardened again. "I wouldn't have done it if I knew," she whispered. "If you had told me who you were, all this would have been different." I closed my eyes briefly. There it was, the real truth. Karen had never cared about safety or rules or teaching lessons. She cared about control, and she only feared consequences when those consequences belonged to someone with authority. "You treat people differently based on who you think they are," I said. "That's exactly why this neighborhood fears you." Karen looked up sharply. "They don't fear me. They need me." Behind us, a neighbor called softly, "No, Karen, we fear you." Karen turned around slowly, eyes wide. Another neighbor stepped forward. "Every week you threaten us. Every month you add a new rule." A woman added, "You fined me because my flowers were too yellow." A man stepped up, "And me because my kid chalked a smiley face on the sidewalk." Karen shook her head violently. You all hate me after everything I've done?" "We hate what you've become," someone whispered. Karen's face drained of color. Her voice rose again, high and cracked. "I was trying to keep perfection, to keep the rules, to stop things from falling apart." I stepped forward. "You tied a child to a rope." That single sentence fell heavy in the air. Karen folded her arms across her stomach, hugging herself like she suddenly felt cold. Her eyes flicked toward my daughter, small, crying, trembling, and she looked away quickly, guilt flashing in her expression. "I never wanted to be the villain," she whispered. "No one ever does," I said. For a moment the only sounds were the slowing machine behind us and my daughter's soft, uneven breathing as she held tight to her mother. Karen swallowed hard. What happens now?" I didn't answer immediately. Not because I didn't know, but because I needed to choose the right words. When I finally spoke, my voice was steady. "Karen, what you did has consequences." She shivered. Consequences? "You endangered a child," I said. "You caused emotional harm. You misused authority. You acted recklessly." Her breath hitched. "You're going to arrest me?" "That's not my decision alone," I replied. "But police will be involved." Karen's knees wobbled. She gripped the metal beam beside her to keep from falling. "And," I continued quietly, "you will never come near my family again." Karen's voice cracked. I didn't know. I didn't mean. But the sentence fell apart on her tongue. My wife held our daughter tighter, gently brushing her hair away from her damp cheeks. I looked at Karen one last time. Her eyes were full of fear now, real fear. Not the loud, showy anger she used to hide behind. She had stepped into danger she created, and only now realized how deep she had gone. The truth had hit her harder than any punishment ever could, and it was only the beginning. The street felt strangely silent right before the sirens reached us. It was the kind of silence that comes right before a storm. Heavy, expectant, stretched tight like a rope ready to snap. The neighbors stopped whispering. Karen froze mid-breath. Even the double drum machine behind us seemed to quiet down, as if the ground itself sensed what was coming. Then the familiar echo of police sirens broke through the calm, bouncing off the houses and rolling across the yards. Karen's head whipped toward the sound, her expression twisted, fear, disbelief, and anger fighting on her face all at once. She took one small step backward, her heels slipping slightly in the dirt, leaving a crooked trail behind her. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no. They're not here for me." But of course they were. 2 patrol cars pulled up fast, stopping at the edge of the yard. Dust rose around them, and the doors swung open almost immediately. 3 officers stepped out, scanning the scene with sharp eyes. One officer saw the machine first, then the rope on the ground, then my daughter holding on to my wife, still shaking. His jaw tightened instantly. He looked at me next, and the moment he saw the badge clipped to my belt, his posture straightened. He understood everything in seconds. "What happened here, Chief?" he asked, voice steady but urgent. Before I could speak, Karen jumped in front of him, waving her hands desperately. "This is a misunderstanding," she blurted out. "She's fine. Everyone is overreacting." The officer turned slowly toward her, brow raised. "Ma'am, please step back." Karen shook her head rapidly. "No, you don't understand. I was just enforcing HOA rules. She breaks them all the time." Another officer approached the rope and picked it up, studying the knot, the height, and the position above the machine. He looked shocked. "You hung a child above this?" he said, lifting the rope for the others to see. Karen's face twisted defensively. "I didn't hurt her. She wasn't supposed to get hurt. It was just a scare." My daughter whimpered. Karen twitched, annoyed by the sound, but quickly forced a fake sympathetic expression. "See? She's fine," Karen insisted. "She's being dramatic. Kids cry all the time." The first officer narrowed his eyes. "Ma'am, you put a minor in danger. That's serious." Karen laughed nervously and pointed at me. "He's twisting the story. He wants to make me look bad because he doesn't like rules." I stepped closer, calm but firm. This wasn't about rules. This was about control. And fear. Karen glared at me, her voice shrill. She deserved to be scared. She breaks rules all the time. Her chalk drawings, her bike, her useless little... "Stop," my wife snapped, her voice cracking like a whip. "She's a child." Karen's eyes went cold. Children who don't obey need consequences. The officers exchanged looks. That one sentence, said with complete seriousness, sealed Karen's fate more than anything else. The lead officer stepped forward. "Ma'am, turn around. You're under investigation for endangering a child." Karen stumbled backward again, bumping into the metal beam she tied my daughter to earlier. "No," she gasped. "No, you can't do this. I'm the HOA president. I run everything here." My wife scoffed. "Not anymore." Another officer reached for Karen's wrist gently, but she yanked it away. "No!" she screamed, stepping back again. "I said I'm not going anywhere. I didn't touch her. I didn't hurt her. Why is everyone acting like this is a big deal?" The officer raised an eyebrow. "You tied a kid to a rope above heavy machinery." Karen froze for a second. Then she tried to laugh it off. "It wasn't on," she lied. The machine was still running behind her, the drums turning slowly, the rumble unmistakable. Everyone stared. Karen let out a short, panicked laugh. I meant, I didn't notice. It wasn't dangerous. She was fine. Look, she's standing right there." She pointed at my daughter. My daughter flinched behind me. That tiny motion, my child hiding from the sight of Karen, made something crack inside me. Not rage, not fear, just a deep, heartbreaking realization. My daughter would remember this for a long time. The officer seemed to sense the weight of the moment. He stepped past me and approached Karen carefully, as if she might bolt. "Ma'am," he said calmly, "you need to cooperate. This situation is serious." Karen's chest rose and fell rapidly. Her confidence was gone now, shredded by reality. She looked around, searching for support. The neighbors stepped back. One shook their head, another frowned, another folded their arms tightly. Not a single person moved toward her. Not one defended her. Karen's voice cracked again. "You, all of you, you're letting them do this to me, after all the work I put into this place?" No one spoke. It was the loudest silence I'd ever heard. Finally, Karen's shoulders sank. Her arms dropped slowly to her sides. Her face, once full of pride and authority, now looked empty, hollow. The officer moved behind her and gently took her wrists. A soft metallic click echoed through the yard. Karen whispered, barely audible, "I didn't know she was his daughter." I met her eyes. "You shouldn't need to know," I said quietly. "You should have cared because she's human." Karen swallowed but said nothing. The officers guided her toward the patrol car. Her steps were stiff and slow, like she was walking in a dream she didn't want to be in. My daughter watched Karen leave, still holding tightly onto my wife. Her small fingers squeezed harder each time Karen looked back, but she didn't cry anymore. She simply watched, wide-eyed, understanding something deeper than a child should ever need to. As Karen was placed into the back seat of the car, neighbors slowly walked closer to us, cautious but concerned. One woman touched my daughter's shoulder gently. "You're safe now," she whispered. My daughter nodded silently. The patrol car door shut with a final heavy thud. Karen was gone, but the damage she caused, the fear she planted, still hung in the warm air like dust waiting to settle, and I knew this day had changed the whole neighborhood, maybe forever. The police car carrying Karen disappeared down the street until the red and blue lights faded behind the row of houses. Only then did the crowd begin to disperse. The neighbors who had been frozen in shock now moved slowly, as though they were waking from a long, unsettling dream. The sun had dipped lower in the sky, coating everything with a warm golden layer that felt strangely comforting after the chaos. The rumbling of the double drum crash machine finally stopped when an officer shut it off, and the sudden silence felt like a blessing, soft, calm, and long overdue. My daughter wrapped her arms around my neck again. She wasn't crying anymore, but her tiny body still trembled every few seconds, like the fear hadn't fully left her. I adjusted my grip and held her tighter. "You're safe, sweetheart," I whispered. "No one will ever scare you like that again." She nodded slowly, her cheek resting on my shoulder. I thought she was going to drop me," she said in a small voice. "I know," I answered gently. "But you're with us now. You're okay." My wife brushed dirt off our daughter's clothes, her hands soft but trembling slightly. She had been strong earlier, fierce, protective, but now that the danger was gone, the fear finally caught up to her. Her eyes glistened with tears she was trying hard not to let fall. When she finally spoke, her voice cracked. "I can't believe she did that. To a child, to our child." I kissed the top of her head. "It's over now." But even saying it didn't fully erase the weight in the air. Not yet. As I set my daughter on her feet, she held my fingers tightly, making sure I didn't let go. Together, we walked a few steps away from the machine. The rope still lay there on the ground, dusty and tangled, like a scar left behind from a nightmare. One of the officers approached us. His face softened when he saw my daughter's red eyes and trembling lips. "Chief, we've documented everything," he said quietly. "We'll file the report and begin the formal process. You did the right thing calling us in." I nodded. "Thank you for coming quickly." "Of course," he replied. "We're glad she's okay." My daughter squeezed my hand, trying to stand tall even though she was clearly exhausted from fear. The officer gave her a gentle smile before stepping away to join the others. As the police finished gathering statements from the neighbors, a few residents approached us slowly. They looked guilty, ashamed even. The first neighbor, an older woman with gray hair tied in a loose bun, stopped in front of my wife. "I'm so sorry," she said quietly. "We all saw Karen getting worse, but we were scared to say anything. She threatened us with fines and letters all the time. We didn't know it would reach this point." My wife nodded, still holding our daughter's shoulders. It's not your fault, she said softly. No one expected she'd go this far. Another neighbor stepped forward, a man who lived 2 houses down. She's been bullying the whole street for years, he admitted. We let it slide because we thought she'd calm down eventually. She didn't calm down, I replied. She only got bolder because no one challenged her. The man ran a hand through his hair. We should have stood up earlier. I'm sorry. My daughter looked at him with a gentle expression, even though she barely understood the depth of his words. She was just relieved the danger was gone. A younger woman approached next, holding her toddler. Your daughter is so brave, she said. I would have fallen apart if that were my kid. My daughter lowered her eyes shyly and whispered, I was scared. That's okay, the woman said softly. Being scared and surviving makes you even stronger. The compliment made my daughter cling to me a little tighter, but a small smile finally appeared on her face. Slowly, more neighbors gathered around, offering quiet words of comfort, support, and apology. No one defended Karen. No one excused her actions. They all knew now this wasn't strictness or leadership or rule-keeping. This was obsession. This was danger hiding behind authority. And it had finally been exposed. When the officers finished their work, one of them approached me again. We'll take her for evaluation, he explained. Given what she did, there will be legal consequences. But more importantly, she'll be kept away from children. My wife let out a shaky breath of relief. Thank you, she said quietly. The officer gave a final nod before returning to the patrol cars. Soon, the cars started moving down the street, the last of their flashing lights reflecting off the houses as they left. As the neighborhood slowly settled back into calm, I crouched down in front of my daughter. Look at me, I said gently. She wiped her face with her small hands and looked into my eyes. You are safe, I said, and nothing bad is going to happen to you. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. As long as I'm here. She sniffed and whispered, Dad, I thought you wouldn't reach me. I touched her cheek softly. I will always reach you. My wife knelt beside us, wrapping her arms around both of us in a warm, trembling embrace. The sun dipped a little lower, casting long shadows across the yard, but this time the shadows didn't feel threatening. They felt peaceful, like the world was finally settling again after a violent shake. The neighbors began walking back to their houses. The machine sat silently now, no longer roaring, no longer part of Karen's twisted plan. The rope lay abandoned, useless, powerless. Everything that had terrified my daughter moments earlier was now nothing more than silent objects in the fading light. My daughter took my hand again and whispered softly, Can we go home now? I smiled gently. Yes, I said. We're going home. As we walked together, my wife on one side, my daughter holding my hand on the other, I looked back one final time at the quiet yard, the place where she had been hanging, the machine that had frightened her, the space where Karen had stood believing she controlled everything. It was all still there, but the fear was gone. And as we stepped inside our home, closing the door behind us, I knew one thing for certain. Karen's power ended today, and my daughter's safety would never be threatened again.